It's daylight, and I have an ugly shirt on. Hey there, this is your pal Pallie, and welcome back to Overrated. This is episode number 41. And today we're going to be talking about the Warlords of Draenor expansion. It is out. It is fun, and it is time to start commenting on it. So I was going to do an episode last week. That would have been when my sort of 2-week schedule should have been. But then the subject would have been BlizzCon. There really wasn't much to talk about with respect to World of Warcraft and BlizzCon, so it didn't really make sense for me to do a show on that. And I'm like, well, in another week, Warlords is going to be out, so I just said, forget it. Here we are, episode 41, talking about Warlords of Draenor. So I'm going to cover many things in this episode, talking about my leveling experience, server stability, heroic dungeons, and then my dipping of my toe into challenge modes and such. And then overall, garrisons and the feel of zones and everything like that. So a lot to cover, lots of fun. So let's dig into it. So, you level 100 yet? Because I am. And I got there in the first day. Okay, technically I got there in the first 24 hours. So the servers would come up at 2 a.m. my time, and I got to level 100 right around 2 a.m., the next day, so to speak. So that night. Probably could have been there sooner, but had, many things happen. So how did my leveling experience go? Well, what I like to do leveling-wise is go to sleep, then wake up for the expansion, for the release of everything. So that's what I did. I went to bed around 9, 10 o'clock. Slept till about 1:30, got up, got going, got my snacks and my setup and my caffeine all good to go on my desk, and logged in, was chilling, in Orgrimmar, waiting for everyone, and getting into my group that we were going to level with, and all prepared. And then it released 15 minutes early. What? Oh my God, head explode. So people scrambling to get in and get going. And I made my first mistake right there. I clicked the portal to Blasted Lands. No, bad idea. Bad idea. Too many people wanting to go through the dark portal. And I even knew that there was the ability to get through the dark portal in other zones. So they put more Archmage Khadgar, I think. They put more of him in the world. So you could click on him, say, hey, send me through the dark portal. And you could do that from like Two Moons. You could do that from, various other places other than Blasted Lands. So, whoops. So 45 minutes later, I finally get back from DCing and lagging and all this other crap, and make it through the dark portal. My group is, at various stages of trying to get through that as well. And we end up finally mostly getting together on the Tanaan Jungle experience. It's probably me and another guy who were sort of lagging behind, but we finished it up, got through it before, we got DC'd too many more times. And then got to Frostfire, and as other people had been reporting to us already, Frostfire was a mess. Yes, it was a freaking mess. So at that point, my group decided, all right, screw this. We're just going to go queue for dungeons like we said we would. So our original plan was, let's get our garrison, let's get it starting to build resources, and then do dungeons from 90 to 92 and be all done. And there's a cat opening the lid to food. He's smart. I'll post a video sometime. I actually videoed him doing it. Anywho, distractions, yes. So we decided to do dungeons. And by the way, let me back up. Handing in the 25 daily quests from Miss Pandaria actually worked out fairly well. It was like 40%, maybe 45% of a level. So that was a good idea. That was good. It worked out this time. Anywho, dungeons. So we queue up for dungeons, and we get Blood Maul Slag Mines. Okay, cool. cool. But that's all you got. From 90 to 92, that's the only dungeon you could get was Blood Maw Slag Mines. So we kept queuing up and getting that dungeon over and over again, which was fine. You know, we were getting pretty good at it, getting, you know, go over here, kill this, do this, you know. So we knew Blood Maw Slag Mines pretty darn good after all of that. But we kept, you know, sort of asking other groups, hey, how's Frostfire? Is Frostfire any better? And everyone was like, no, it's terrible. Stop, just don't even try. Like for the 2 hours that we were doing those dungeons, you know, one group was basically trying to click the banner to place their garrison for that long. That's some patience right there. So we sort of skipped much of that. About 2 or 3 hours, most of us were over level 92. And we're like, okay, cool. So we tried, for the most part, I think all of us were able to at that point. I think I made some hot fixes to like clicking on the flags for the trees and such at that point. And we got our garrisons placed, all of us, and then just jetted over to Gorgrond. We were just like, yep, we're out of here. And that, again, proved to be pretty good. Proved to be a pretty good decision. We were sort of ahead of the crowd. We were, you know, going... We were ahead of things, and it wasn't like there was a lot of people there, so the servers weren't laggy in that area. So, good deal. Good stuff. So we, you know, at that point, you know, sort of the rest of the day, rest of the sort of work day-ish time frame was spent leveling through Gorgrond, Talador, Spires, etc., etc. We all sort of, you know, one or two guys petered out, one guy got ahead. So I ended up with a guy named Zeb. We were like mostly our big leveling guys for that day. So we got to sort of by 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we got to level 98, with some interruptions for me to go pick up my kids or him to go do this or something, to let his dog out, etc., etc. You know, not like just we were going through this hardcore. So about 98 at the end of the workday, and then it was time. I had to be gone for a few hours. So, you know, we sort of stopped there, or at least I did. And then I came back and revisited it about 9, maybe 10 o'clock after the queue. And, as I said, finished up Nagrand from 98 to 100 in a few hours and was done at 2 a.m. or so. So, yay! And thanks to people who hung out in the chat room for my stream. You know, I was like, come encourage me, help me get through this. I've been up for 24 hours, need more caffeine, need more cheers. Get me through it. So thanks to people for stopping by on that. Appreciate that. So, how was the leveling experience? Pretty good. Pretty good. I think overall the quests were interesting. It was also nice to have the treasures and the bonus objectives be worth so much, because you really felt like, okay, yes, I could do questing and get through the zone, but if I want a boost, I can go do this bonus objective really quickly, which none of those were like, oh my god, interesting bonus objectives. It was more of like, kill 30 of these, kill this boss dude, done, here's your 70k experience or whatever, you know, whatever. But they were certainly worth your time because it was such a large boost in comparison to how much you would need. So that would be like doing 5 or 6 quests by just going to do this one bonus objective. So that was cool. Same with finding the treasures and everything. I got a tip on like, here, you know, get the TomTom add-on and then paste these coordinates in, and it, you know, gave me all the places where, you know, treasures supposedly were going to be. And, you know, along the way, I'm like telling my group, oh, there's a possible treasure over here, let's go look on this. And you click on that and boom, here's 10k experience, which is a nice little chunk just for clicking on something and finding something. So, you know, cool stuff there with the treasures, kind of like that, you know, hidden little boosts here and there. So really liked how that flowed and how that all came through. And then some of the zones were good for flow, some of them were not. I knew Frostfire Ridge from beta, so I knew that one flowed pretty well, but I did like nothing in it because we totally skipped it, as I just said. Gorgrond and Talador, those sort of flowed pretty well. You didn't feel like you were stuck in any place, and you sort of finished up around the time when the zone was finishing up. So, felt good there. Gorgrond felt like it had more for you to do, like you could spend additional time and gain an extra level in that realm, which is fine. If you like this zone versus that zone, perfectly fine. The zones that I have the most complaints about, or at least heard the most complaints about, were Spires and Nagrand. So Spires, I totally agree with. It felt really disjointed, really like, okay, just get me frickin' through this. And it felt very large, like I felt like I was there forever, and I look back at my story progress, and it's saying that I only did 5 out of the 9 of the chapters of the story, so like I'm not even close to being done there. And then moving on to Nagrand, I liked the zone initially, so for the first level and a half, I felt, oh, this is flowing pretty well. You go do this, here's the sort of Nessing Way type quests where you kill 15 of these and then kill the big dude of that, the cats, and then kill the big cat kind of thing. And then the arena around there, the Ring of Trials, you had that sort of thing going on that you could solo. Like, cool, this is fun, I like this. But then when you got sort of like near the end of that zone, near the end of getting to level 100, again, I don't know if it was because I was so close to the level, I was so tired, and if this is the experience for other people, but it felt like that zone dragged on right at the end. It was like, okay, I got to go all the way over here, and then I got to go all the way up here for Throne of Elements stuff. I was just like, get this through, get me done. And really, I finished Nagrand and its objectives, and only had maybe another. I went back and finished it later. Maybe only had 5 to 10 quests left in the whole zone. So really, slid in there with skin of my teeth and such. And certainly, I was finding treasures and everything along the way too. So I don't know. Those were the 2 zones I felt didn't flow as much, or didn't. And one of the things I said along the way, and people agreed with, it felt like it should have been, you should have been getting more experience in the higher zones, and you really didn't. You were getting 13k, 15k. You weren't getting, all of a sudden you get to Nagrand and you're getting 20k. So it really didn't feel like you had any reason for moving on to the next zone unless you just felt like it. So again, you could have just stuck in Gorgrond, you should have just stuck in Spires, and gotten the same amount of progress on your levels as if you were to move to Nagrand. So it really didn't pay off for you to immediately jump to the next zone when you could. So that didn't feel right to me. It felt like we should get rewarded for going into the harder zone, so to speak. The zone that has mobs that hit harder. And I guess the mobs themselves gave a bit more experience, so by the time you hit Nagrand, you were getting like 1,000 experience for a mob kill here and there. Whereas in Frostfire and other things, you were getting like 380, 400, 500, that kind of thing. But quest-wise, it didn't feel like that tied together. So, again, those are my complaints. Overall, I am super happy with the questing experience. There's a lot of variety. There's the bonus objectives. There's all that stuff. And the zones are just beautiful. They're just so pretty. Again, I think us Horde got a little shafted. We got Frostfire versus Shadowmoon Valley for the Alliance. The Alliance got the better zone. I'm sorry. They did. It looks amazing. And I feel sorry for Horde, who have like no reason at this point, little reason at this point, to go into Shadowmoon Valley, because it's just so pretty. So, take a moment. Take a little tour of Shadowmoon if you can. Don't run into the PvP stuff. Don't run into cities or anything. But anywho, so that's leveling. I really liked it overall. good stuff, and I got to 100 within a day. Probably, I would estimate, it's probably a 12 to 16 hour thing if I didn't have, server problems and had to do things, etc., etc. If you took it at a decent pace. Obviously, there are people who took it a lot faster and were done within, I think I heard of the first hundreds around hour 10, 12, something like that. Maybe earlier. I don't remember exactly when I saw that, but it felt like we were, the guy who was sort of ahead of my group, he was keeping pace with sort of the top guilds, and he would be doing like a /who to see who's 99, who's 100, who's whatever. And if he had not had to log off in the afternoon, he would have been there too. But anywho, that's that. So moving on, after leveling, of course, the next thing is to gear up and do dungeons and get ready for raids. So the first obstacle to hit at level 100 is to get to item level 610 in order to queue up for heroic dungeons. And you also have to do the Proving Grounds. You have to get a silver in that. So, and the silver thing is not too difficult. You should be able to get that done. But getting to item level 610 proved to be one of those questions and one of those things that it was just like everyone had that same question over and over again. So, maybe you're already there at 610, but I'm going to provide this as like, here you go. Here's some public service announcements. So, what are the... I did a few episodes ago, I talked about gearing up in WoD, and much of that still applies. I was wrong about... I think I said that the bind on account weapons, the Garrosh weapons, were 630 once you ended up with them. They're actually 620. So if you have one of those, that's of course already a bonus for you. You're already over that 610 realm for the weapon. But what are the other sources for equipment? So, first off, probably the easiest one is if you have been doing questing in Spires and in Frostfire, you are probably already honored with both the Frostwolf clan and the bird people, the Oroka. I forget how to pronounce that at this point. So you're probably already honored, and you can go get a trinket from a vendor in Ashran that is 615 for both of those. So you can immediately get your trinkets 615. And that's just like gold, straight up gold. Go buy them. I think they're like 400 gold, 500 gold, something like that. So boom, go get that. Then next up, you probably want to get your legendary ring quest going if you haven't already. So you should have gotten that quest around level 98. I forget where exactly you pick it up from, but because it was all sort of a blur. But you should be able to pick it up. And then the only thing you really have to do, besides following some quest chains, is go to normal mode Skyreach dungeon and complete it. If you do that, you will immediately get an item level 640 ring. Cool. There's a big boost for you. In order to progress further, which I'll talk about in a second, you have to do heroic dungeons. But the whole point of this is we're trying to get into heroic dungeons, so I'm not going to talk about that just yet. So what else? PvP gear. So if you have some leftover honor, which I don't know how I had some leftover honor, but I had like 2,000 sitting in my character. PvP guy? No. Anywho, I had 2,000 honor. You can go to Ashran and buy item level 620 gear from the vendor there. And here's another little sort of trick, which, again, if this doesn't work in a few weeks, don't kill me, but if you sit in the Ashran zone and you're sitting in the battle itself, like the battle zone, that PvP gear actually turns into item level 675 gear. Because you're in a PvP zone, you're supposed to be doing PvP activities. If you sit there in Ashran, you can actually boost your item level artificially and get into a dungeon. Again, if it doesn't work in a little while, there you go. But that was the sort of trick that we used for, our healer is item level 608. He's so close. Okay, go buy that, neck piece for 1250 honor, okay, cool, now he's 6'10", because he's sitting in Ashran with, you know, this PvP gear that is artificially boosted because of the PvP zone. Again, might not work for you eventually, but that's a quick little tip. But certainly, buying the PvP pieces, they are item level 620 anyway for PvE purposes. So, you know, go at it. You know, if you want to do Asheran stuff and get a bunch of honor and buy it all, you know, more power to you. But anywho, so PvP is another place to get your item level up. Beyond that, you might want to try to finish zones like Nagrand or Spires, because many of the end pieces of those quests will have things that give you sort of an item level 600 piece or something along those lines. And those also have a chance to roll higher. They have a chance to be of better quality, which I don't know if you knew that yet. That was sort of a thing I heard, but I didn't, you know, really make a big deal out of it or think about it as a big deal. And, you know, it certainly helped me out item level wise as I was finishing up Nagrand. So there you go. There's so many ways to get yourself geared up for heroic dungeons. Certainly the legendary ring's easy. The trinkets from Ashran for the Frostwolf and Bird People factions, easy stuff. Grabbing some PvP gear, easy peasy, and then, you know, grinding some quests. You may have to hit some rares or some treasures or something to find some pieces that will work for you, but you'll get there. You'll get there. So that's the gearing up for heroic dungeons, and now we can talk about dungeons. Woo! Well, and of course, I completely forgot this. If you are trying to get some more pieces for to get into heroics, normal dungeon mode gear I think is 615. So again, if all else fails, you can grind some normal mode dungeons to get yourself geared up, and hopefully that you don't have to do that too long before you can get into heroics. So anyhow, all right, that's it. Moving on to heroic dungeons. So how do they feel? How are they doing? How are we doing? Pretty good. I think overall, my impression is the dungeons are good looking. They feel good, and they did strike the balance between Cataclysm hard heroics and easy Missipendaria heroics. So for the most part, give you some background, my experience in heroic dungeons has been mostly with guild groups, sitting on TeamSpeak, voice communicating, talking about crowd control, talking about cooldowns, that kind of thing. I have certainly pugged out using the LFD tool, and we certainly, if our healer was, needing to go for a few minutes, we could queue up with and get a pug healer and go like that. So certainly I'm on the sort of top of the spectrum in terms of coordination and such for heroic dungeons. So they felt not bad to me. Certainly early on, our healers were and still are complaining of mana problems, and they sort of have to sit and drink every 5 minutes or so, or after a big pull or after a boss fight. So that is certainly still happening. But you do that, you go to the next pack, you get through it, off you go. But overall the dungeons are so pretty. They're so nice, interesting mechanics, just all that kind of stuff. So, kudos to Blizzard for all of those sort of details and those pieces of these dungeons where it's just like, wow, they seem so put together. And like, one of the warlocks that I was running with on Friday in my guild, we got Grimrail Depot, and he was like, man, that was just cool. We're on this train, and we're doing this stuff, and the sides flip out, and it's just like, whoa, that was awesome. It blew his mind. He, for another 20-30 minutes, he was talking about that dungeon, even after we'd moved on to another one. So, people are really impressed, at least with the feel of the dungeons, the look, and the encounters and whatnot. Certainly there are some encounters that are harder than others, like Grimrail Depot, that cannon guy. I think that was, second or third boss? Second one? Anywho, that one has been giving various groups in my guild trouble just getting through, and yes, I know it's about killing the ads to use the stuff to kill it, but it's just sort of a bit more complex than you would expect from a heroic dungeon. But anywho, you get through it, you figure out where to use the grenades, where to use the cannon, etc., etc. But overall, encounter-wise, there were some that were a little tighter than others, some that was just like, oh yeah, okay, just don't stand in the stuff, and you're good to go. So yeah, really had a positive experience with dungeons. I was doing them, sort of Friday and Saturday. So Friday was when there were still server troubles. Saturday, things were getting better, and then certainly Sunday, no problems with things. But yeah, really enjoying the loot. And yes, I am being extremely lucky with my hunter again, and it's pissing off so many people. I'm currently at item level like 633. I have one more piece of non-heroic dungeons, so I've got a 610 ring, and that's it. Everything else is 630 or above. Yeah, I'm that guy. I get all the loot. It was so bad. Like the first 2 heroics we did, I think I picked up like 5 pieces, and they're like, "Oh my god, he just got more mail. This just dropped. Are you kidding me?" It was bad. It was just like, I'm sorry guys, I'm just getting all the loot. But whatever. I got the loot. They don't. No. But people got stuff along the way. We did enough heroics that people were getting up item level wise. All good. So what have I sort of gotten? I've gotten a number of pieces that were warforged, so that was nice. A nice little bonus. I didn't know that the heroic dungeon gear could be warforged. So your item level 630 could actually be 636. Nice little boost in item level. I've seen a few of the tertiary stats, so like speed and leech and all those types of things. So that's interesting. I think I have maybe 2 or 3 sockets on my gear across the whole set from all this dungeon grinding. So again, nice little bonuses there. But what else? So how do I have that item level at this point? Well, again, most of the pieces are 630. I did do the challenge mode daily on Sunday, and I'll talk about that in a second, how that went. But that extra rewards an item level 640 piece. So my cloak is that. Bye-bye legendary cloak. Sorry. And then, as I hinted about earlier, if you can continue on the legendary quest chain for the ring, and that actually turns your 640 ring into a 680 ring. And all you really have to do there is do, again, a few more quests, but go into 4 of the heroic dungeons. I think it's Iron Docks, Auchindoun, no, not Iron Docks, Grimrail Depot, Auchindoun, Everbloom, and I don't remember the last one offhand. Anywho, you go through those quests. Oh, Bloodmaw Slag Mines. You go through those quests, you go through the dungeons, you pick up you loot something off the final boss, and then you eventually get a 680 ring. So that's a nice little piece to have, certainly. Everyone who's going to be ready for raiding should be getting that ring as soon as possible. So again, dungeon experience was pretty positive overall. There were some rough spots. Healers are having some trouble with mana, but we're getting through them, and we're doing a decent amount of coordination of CC this, burst this, let's not pull like 5 packs, we'll only pull like 1 pack at a time. Certainly early on we were only pulling 1 pack. Now, with people getting between 620, 630 gear level, we're certainly pulling like 2 packs, but we're not like pulling the whole freaking dungeon. Tanks are not surviving that, healers are not able to keep them up like that. So yeah, nice dungeons, look pretty, fun stuff. Yeehaw. So, still on the dungeon subject, let's talk challenge modes. So I've only done 1 so far. That was the Iron Docks daily of yesterday, of Sunday. And that one was pretty good, I guess. It's kind of what I expected for challenge modes. We were walking in there with me being the most geared person, I think I didn't have a cloak, weapon, and ring at that point that were 630. So I was maybe 629-ish, that kind of thing. Our healer was certainly undergeared. He had item level maybe 618 or so, 620 at best. And the challenge mode dungeons do not scale you up. They will scale down your stuff if it's above 630. So my 680 ring became 630, but everything else was, staying the same. So we had an undergeared healer in a sense. But we sort of took it slow. We weren't trying to get gold. We weren't trying to do anything. We took it slow, wiped a few times. Again, didn't push for it hardcore, and we still ended up with a bronze and completed the challenge mode daily. And actually, you don't even have to complete the dungeon and get a medal. Or you have to complete the dungeon, the challenge mode, to get your daily done, but you don't have to do it in bronze time or silver or anything to get credit for it. So, we got it in bronze. I think we missed silver by maybe 10 minutes. So I'd say if we do that same one again, and we didn't like reset the time and start all over and start rushing through. We just were like, we're just gonna walk through the dungeon as best we can, and we got bronze. So, cool stuff there. I think our time was like 50 minutes or something like that. Maybe less than that. I don't know. Anyhow, we got through it. We could probably go back and do that same one and get silver pretty easily, I would bet, now that we know what things are where. Certainly gold is going to be where you're optimizing things, you're pulling the right stuff, all that kind of stuff. We're not worried about that at this point, but I saw that someone has already finished all of the gold challenge modes, so kudos to you guys. That's pretty hardcore. That's pretty awesome. I'm sure they'll be selling those very soon. Very, very soon. So that's my experience with challenge modes, just the one, and I'll be doing that daily for a little bit here until rating is open, and sort of report more back on challenge modes if there's anything more interesting to say about them. Certainly tuning wise, people, they'll hopefully work out, but that's challenge modes. And then I guess to end this episode, we should probably hit on garrisons, since it was sort of a major feature. So garrisons are interesting. What I find most interesting about them is that people are being forced, maybe not forced, but people are making meaningful choices about what buildings and what things they're doing with their garrison at this early stage. So many people, out of the 35 people who have been sort of hanging around in guild for the last few days, many people have many different plans. They are all over the place. From, I want to, set up the transmog stuff for this building and have the support structure and have the resources to do it, and the blacksmith for this and that, to, no, I want to make a ton of money on professions. I'm going to go hardcore on the herb garden. I don't know. Someone might do that. And this and that, and we want to do this. So I have seen many, many different plans, many, many people who are doing things completely different, and it's all working out for them. They're all having fun with it and, doing it up. The only complaints I've heard about garrison so far is it's not really clear after you are finished with questing how to gain more garrison resources. Certainly there are buildings that are set up for that, so like the lumber mill and the trading post and such, but it's hard after you're done leveling to then go, well, where do I get more so I can get the level 3 garrison? And you sort of have to realize, well, you can go out and kill rares, you can go find all the treasures and all of that kind of stuff and get those garrison resources. I know for myself, I'm going back and finishing all of the questing zones, so I've got a bunch to do in Spires, Gorgrond, etc. And, I'm hoping those resources will boost me up enough to sort of finish out my garrison buildings, and then I can, slowly upgrade them over time. But that's one of those things where people are like, well, where do I get more garrison resources? Where do I get the resources? And it's really difficult to sort of explain all of those pieces and what to do next. So that's sort of my only complaint about garrisons. Like I said, my guild leader last night was all excited running around my level, because I managed to upgrade my garrison to level 3 last night. I was like, cool. He's like, oh, I want to see it. And he's like running around. He discovered that there's some vendor that sells like spikes that you can put in the ground in the Horde one. I don't know if it's true for the Alliance one, but he was like having fun like walling me in with these spikes, which you could walk through them anyway, but it was for fun, it was for pretend. Whatever. We're in a fantasy game, come on. So people were kind of excited about that kind of neat stuff that you just find in the garrison, and he's running around. He found this little Draenor family, ghost family or something out here, and here's all of a sudden this big tree vendor shows up, and just, I don't know, lots of cool things happening in the garrison. People would like a bit more customizability of them, being able to move things around. I've heard WildStar player housing mentioned a few times. I don't know what exactly that would be, but anywho, people are liking them so far for the choices. Would like a bit more customizability, but there's enough gameplay there that it's interesting and people are having fun at this point. So yeah, we'll see once everyone has everything upgraded and they're like, oh yeah, my damn garrison. Stupid thing. No, I'm sure it'll be fine. But anywho, overall, that's been my experiences for the last 3 or 4 days in Warlords of Draenor. Hope you are enjoying it as well. Hope you are able to log in. Haha. No. Hope you're able to get in, and hope you're also enjoying it as well. I mostly avoided the server stability problems, again, from getting ahead of the pack on leveling, and then I sort of got myself in early morning before queues got bad, and just stayed on the whole day. Dungeons, this and that, and just stay logged in. So, yeah. I'm sure we're going to get a day or two of subscription time or some sort of something from them eventually, but whatever. We'll be okay. We'll all be okay. Anywho, not to end on a bad note, but had to mention the server stability problems because that was a big part of this expansion so far as well. But overall, really liking it. I'm really hearing a lot of feedback from my guildmates that they're liking the expansion minus the server problems. And yeah, let's continue on to Draenor, continue on to raids. If you haven't checked out my raid guides for Highmaul, that's coming up. You should be looking at those. And yeah, thanks for watching as always. Please subscribe, and it's always great to see more subscribers. I've gotten a ton in the last week or so. Although it's funny, the hits for like all of my videos like plummeted on the day of release because everyone's freaking playing the game. They're not watching videos about it. So hopefully, let people know that I've got raid guides for Highmaul at this point, and I'll certainly be cranking them out as we down them on live, so that I can give you the exact strategies and the exact everything for them once everything is in place. Probably I will at least try to finish Blackrock Foundry Blackhand. I have most of that guide written, but again, I've been playing the game. I said this on Twitter today. I've been actually playing the game, not actually working on content. So, give me a few. I'll get there. I'll get back to it. But yeah, here is Overrated number 41, talking about my experiences in Warlords of Draenor. Thanks, guys, for watching, and have a good one.